Thanks everyone for joining us so far. We're gonna give folks about 5 more minutes to join before we start the presentation for Indico 5. Hi all, I'm super excited to be hosting our product release webinar for Indico 5 today. Thank you for joining for those of us that are familiar and those of you that are new to Indico. Today we're really going to first talk about the Indico Data Advantage for the new folks, and then reorient the folks that are familiar with us around who we are and what we do. We're going to introduce Indico 5, where Sasha Fries will be joining me, who's our Director of Product Management. She will also walk us through a demo, and then we'll have a fireside chat with one of our current customers, Chris Engel from Johnson Controls, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So, as I mentioned, today's speakers are myself. I'm a VP of Global Delivery here at Indico Data. Sasha Fries will be joining me, who's a Director of Product Management. And then Chris Engel is a current customer of ours, and he really leads their automation efforts at Johnson Controls. So, first I really want to start with the Indico Advantage and, what it does to unlock the value of your unstructured data in the enterprise. Indico is the unstructured data platform, and what that means, really a lot of organizations aren't able to access about 85% of their data because it's unstructured and it's tough to unlock. So Indico really allows organizations to extract that data, automate it, analyze it, and apply it across their enterprise. A little more about Indico: we're Boston headquartered, we're venture backed, we do have an experienced management team, and what's really exciting in 2021 is we saw 100% customer renewal. So our customers are seeing value with Indico data within their enterprise. Some of our customers are, Fortune 500 companies, and they're cross-industry, which is really exciting. The impact we've had to date is we've been able to process about 10 billion plus items, allowing organizations or our customers to see 85% reduction in their process cycle times. Really what that means is they're spending 80% less of manual work on the resources required to really unlock the unstructured data in their content. So why Indico? Why are we doing so well? Analysts say that there's about an 11% success rate for AI projects in production without Indico. With Indico, our customers are experiencing 97% success rate in their projects utilizing Indico. And really, why is that? So, the first advantage is we're able to rapidly tune machine learning models, which really allows our customers to see faster time to production. We also have a low-code UI for the business, which allows our subject matter experts and end users to be empowered, not just in training models, but also operationalizing these models in their everyday. And lastly, we're able to handle content variability at scale. So what does that mean? It means we see breadth across use cases, and we don't see one single platform for one use case, but organizations are able to see breadth across those use cases and really scale it across their enterprise. So as mentioned, we see breadth across use cases, not even in just one industry. We see it across multiple industries and also cross industry. And we've had proven customer results. So I'll hit on 3 of these. At MetLife, they're projecting about $100 million of projected savings, which is really going to be 86% of their time saved on these unstructured data processes. PNC Bank is seeing a 200% faster processing across use cases, including lockbox, step monitoring, and servicing. Cognizant has been able to process 40 million documents per year, which is resulting in about 40% savings. What's really cool about this use case is there are 200 different document types, each that have 1,000 plus variations within them, so they're able to handle that variability that I spoke about on our advantages. So with that, I'm super excited to introduce Indico 5. I'm going to be joined by Sasha Fries, who is our Director of Product Management here at Indico. And I'm most excited being a former customer because Indico 5 is really going to allow organizations to accelerate and scale their automations across the enterprise. So Sasha, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the first feature we're going to talk about is staggered loop training. Sasha, customers have been telling us it would be really great if they could control the learning of their production models. Can you talk us a little bit through what staggered loop training is and how it will address this?
Sure. So we know that once models are turned on in production, they're out of date. Content is changing, the model is seeing data that it hasn't seen before, and there's information available for the model to learn from that production process. When thinking about how to solve this problem, we heard a lot about ownership, governance, and how MLOps can be wily, complex, and oftentimes a black box. So when we were thinking about this, we wanted to overcome that black box, which happens oftentimes with custom models, and we decided we wanted to put continuous learning in the hands of those who know it best. So rather than Indico deciding what information is best to learn from, we're able to identify anomaly production data and then have the users curate that data to improve model performance and determine when their models are ready to promote to ensure that they can get the most value out of their automation.
Sasha, it's really amazing that we're going to put the learning in the hands of the business so they're not left with stagnant models and models aren't learning things that they shouldn't be learning. Moving on, we hear in the market and from customers that pre-processing is really an issue if you think about how organizations receive documents. So a lot of times organizations don't receive documents as a single document. They receive them in stacks. So there could be different document types inside of them that really need to be unbundled and sent to the appropriate workflow. Can you talk a little bit about automatic document unbundling and how it's going to solve this problem in the market?
So talking to our customers, we realized how much work was being put into upstream pre-processing of data to make sure that it could be correctly consumed by automation. And we thought, this should not be ahead of automation, this should be part of it. And we wanted to offer an intelligent solution to this problem, not only to make life easier, but to make automation downstream better by not utilizing documents that were broken up by brittle rules or on files that were kept whole that had extraneous information. Using our point and click interface that we've developed, we made a streamlined process for creating a model that will split these documents using AI rather than templates or manual operations. So it really was a no-brainer to make this available to our customers.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to see not only can we unbundle, but we can classify these documents and send them to the appropriate workflows. And like thinking outside of beyond pre-processing, we also heard a lot of pain points from our customers and really in the market around post-processing your unstructured data into your enterprise applications. Can you talk a little bit about linked labels and how it's going to solve that need?
There are so many use cases out there with related data. There are things like invoices with line items, contracts with conditionals and dates, or even complex tables that will need to be recreated in downstream systems. And we wanted to develop a process that was quick and easy to have that extra structure available. And since we'd heard such a wide variety of these use case specific scenarios, we also wanted to build something that could be ubiquitous and could be used across the enterprise with human in the loop to get that high level of accuracy. We wanted to make sure that our customers could quickly define and then receive that structured data that they were looking for by simply telling us the fields that were related and letting us, our intelligence, do the rest.
Yeah, so not only are we going to see acceleration from a pre-processing perspective, but we're also going to see acceleration on post-processing, really accelerating those process automations at our customers or throughout the enterprises. Okay, so this one's really exciting. Universal document support. So most organizations are global and they have to handle a variety of languages. And not only that, in 2022, it's surprising like how many documents still have handwriting. And our customers in the market really have a need to still understand handwriting. So talk to me a little bit about universal document support and how it's going to create this scale for these global organizations.
It's common knowledge that 85–90% of data within the enterprise is unstructured, but even knowing that, it doesn't capture all the complexity of that data and why it can be difficult to automate it. Oftentimes there's data across languages from global business units and scans and faxes that contain handwriting or are simply just bad scans. We wanted to make sure that customers were not limited in their processes by any of these common constraints that we see. So we've partnered with Microsoft Read API to empower our platform and our users by unlocking that data and the automation around it.
Yeah, I mean, this is so exciting because not only with Indico 5 are customers going to be able to accelerate their automations in pre-processing and post-processing, but now these global organizations are really going to be able to scale their automations across the enterprise. And last but not least, Sasha, in today's market, the business user really wants to be empowered with the technology that they're using in their everyday operations. Can you talk to me a little bit about Workflow Canvas and the enhancements we've made in order to empower business users?
So far, Brandy, we've talked a lot about model needs, data input and output needs, and how we're able to supercharge all of those things is using our orchestration tool called Indico Workflows. With our workflow canvas, we're able to stitch together models, business rules, customizations, and settings for input and output directly on the interface, which empowers non-technical users to automate, audit, and adjust to ensure that their custom workflow is perfect for their use case. Our visualization of the process makes it easy to map and build, really opening up the document processing to the enterprise.
This is so exciting. I mean, with all the process automation, users really want to feel empowered, not just to build their workflows, but be able to triage what exactly is going on in their day-to-day operations without having to rely on other teams or other people. So I'm really excited about this one. But Sasha, being a former customer, we heard a lot about what products we're doing, right, on a really nice slideshow, but seeing is believing. So I'm really excited that you're going to be able to showcase these features within the product. So I'm going to hand it over to you to walk us through this demo.
Okay. So with this demo, I am really looking forward to showing everyone our new features for Indico 5. We've been focused on building functionality that allows intelligent process automation to scale to the scope of your business, as well as unlock more of your data than ever before. In today's demo, we're going to be walking through new functionality with handwriting and language support, the new Indico workflow canvas for building out orchestration, building a linked label transformer that allows you to get more structure out of your automation output, and then how to get to model building with Indico by using our staggered loop process for continuous learning. Beginning with handwriting and language support, we've expanded our standard language offering to include more than 70 languages, including Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, along with the model support for both single and multi-language workflows. We've also introduced Microsoft's Read API as an option for processing documents with handwriting or scans that would often be challenging for other OCR engines. By unlocking the data in these hard to read or poorly scanned documents, you can get more out of your automation. You can see here in this document how well handwriting is handled in creating and building a model. You can see we've trained and built a model on leases with handwriting input for some of the fields here. And you can see, looking at the name of lessor over here on the right-hand side, that we've been able to collect that information not only in text, but how well it's been able to collect it with typed or with handwritten information. This is often a challenge that you'll see in documents containing handwriting, but here you can see that we've been able to capture that data, as well as many other pieces of data around handwritten name and title, with great ease. We find that using our interface alone can speed up data collection by 50%, and with automation like this, it can speed up time by more than 80%, including on these hard to read or handwritten documents. Next, we'll take a look at building an unbundling model where we're able to split our document into multiple parts. Here, I've uploaded a set of annual reports, and there are some 10Q documents interspersed with them. You can see here on the upper right-hand side of my screen, I've only labeled about 16 different documents that contain multiple files. And here we're going to be splitting them by year or by type. So in this case, it's a 10Q. And to create this model, we were able to easily just drag and drop. So I will show you how we're able to do that. For here, we're going to be looking at collecting this 2012 document. We're able to zoom in, so if we can't see all the data here, we can get to it. We see that this is a fiscal year ending in 2012, and I want to collect all those pages to train my model. I'm going to go through, click and drag to collect all this information. And that goes into train a model similarly to how we would train another classification or extraction model. But in this case, we're learning where to split the document so that it can be fed into downstream processes. Since this model has already been trained once, we can see the predictions that it's offering here. We do have a form 10Q. It is correct. We can accept that. And then down here below, we can see that there's a third document as a part of this file. And it is a 2015 annual report, so we can go ahead and accept that and submit this. By submitting this, we'll be adding it to the model training so that it can continue to improve in its performance. And alongside this, we're offering our traditional explain metrics so that you can get insights into your model performance beyond just the qualitative view while you're labeling. Subsequent to this, we can go through and we can look at how we add to our workflow canvas. Here we have the classify and unbundle model that we just viewed, and we can easily build out the rest of the workflow. I'm going to add a filter to this, and we're going to filter on specific labels so that I can only have those specific documents that we split out. Let's say I want to only look at 10 Qs. I can go through, I can add this filter for 10 Qs. And then from there, I'm able to add a subsequent model. Let's say I want to extract data from this. We're going to call it 10Q extraction. From here, I'm able to go through, I'm able to add my labels. Let's say I want to do quarter and year and add the model to my workflow. From here, we can start to see how a workflow begins to take shape and how you're able to visualize exactly what's happening to your documents while you're proceeding with automation. In this particular example, I've already built out an invoices workflow, and this is where we're classifying invoices in bill of lading, filtering on whether or not it's an invoice or a bill of lading document. Any documents that might not be classified as either will go through to the output. And this is how you're able to see exactly what's happening to your document for easy auditing and correction of your automation as needed. So speaking of invoices, we're going to go through and set up a linked labels transformer on an invoices workflow. So in this case, we've already set up and trained our model that is looking for vendors, invoice number, line item value, and total. And what we're going to want to do is add a transformer that will link together our line items and our line item total. So we'll call this line items. That's the kind of transformer that we're creating. And from here, we're going to choose line item and line item value to be included in our group and subsequently add it to our workflow. And what this will look like is this document here. So here you see we have our line items and our line item total, and these groups that have been created and can be reviewed in order to show how they're linked together for more structured output for our downstream systems. This also helps alleviate things like long tail scripting that might have to occur in order to know which line item is missing which line item value. And ultimately, you're able to make any corrections, remove any labels that you don't need, and add to groups if you would like to. So let's say that we'd like to add this and this to the group. We're able to do so, and it does it right in our easy-to-use interface to ensure that you have the maximum accuracy in your downstream system with that human-in-the-loop oversight. One last example I'll show you, because this is something that can be used beyond just things like invoices where there is more structure. We do have a letter here where we're looking for groups of who is the sender, what is their job title, and where do they work, as well as who is the receiver and what is their job title and where do they work. So you can see here we've created a number of different groups up here, as well as down below, we're able to see where a group has been created with the sender information, the name, the title, and where this person works. This works across a number of different use cases. So we've seen invoices, we've seen letters and addresses and how that can be utilized. It can also be used for things like contracts, bringing together separate terms across pages. This really is something that is really fantastic and really brings that structure and an extra level to your output. Finally, we're going to talk about Staggered Loop. Staggered Loop is a new exciting feature that we have coming out in our Indico 5 release. And this is a new thought process on how to offer continuous learning while providing our customers with the oversight that they're looking for in their model performance, as well as when that model performance improvement is brought to production. So here with our human in the loop review screen that you've seen a couple of times in this demo, we can identify anomaly documents. And anomaly documents can be things where they are high touch. Where did the human portion of human in the loop have to create a lot of corrections on what the model has produced? Or if there are occasions where the model produced the right results, but maybe had a lower confidence, we're able to identify those and feed those into your lower environment for them to be potential candidates to increase the performance of your model. So once they are in your lower environment, you're able to iterate on that data by determining whether or not it should be included in model training. Nobody knows your model performance and what data is most valuable other than you. And so this really empowers you to choose which classes you'd like to focus on, what's most important for the next iteration of your model, where are the places that we can create the most informed decisions around how to get something better into production. As we mentioned before, the moment that your model is in production, it's oftentimes out of date. It's seeing data that it hasn't seen before. And this really allows you to bring in that data to your development environment, bring it into your model as needed, determine whether or not you're seeing the model performance results that you would like to see. And then with retraining, you're able to promote it to production if and when you're ready and see those efficiencies downstream and in human in the loop. So with this, we've seen the demo of how Indico helps scale automation for use cases across the enterprise and can unlock data that was previously unavailable to automation. So I'll turn it over to Brandy and her conversation with Chris from Johnson Controls.
Thanks, Sasha, for joining us today. It's so exciting to see these features in the product. It's real. We're really excited about Indico 5 and what it can do for organizations as they think about accelerating and scaling automation across the enterprise. I'm joined here today with one of our current customers, Chris Engel from Johnson Controls. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today. I think it's best when folks hear from customers like the benefit the product will give them or the value that they see with these releases.
Sure. So, well, thanks for having the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, of course. Tell us a little bit about your role at Johnson Controls before we get started for those folks that don't know you or don't know about Johnson Controls.
Sure. Chris Engel, Global Discovery Lead for the Automation Center of Excellence at Johnson Controls International. Johnson Controls has been around for almost 140 years now. We're the global leader in building technologies, solutions, and building products. Everything from the 30-ton chiller that's on top of a skyscraper down to the lock on the door. That's where Johnson Controls plays. Interesting fact, also the Warren Johnson patented the first thermostat, the long gone ancestor of your house thermostat back in the 1880s. So that's where we've come as a company. I myself, we are in the automation suite. We are all things centered around automation. As you can imagine, we're starting with IDP, intelligent document processing, and we handle a large amount of AP invoices, and that's currently what we're using Indico for, and we're expanding to other places, but currently we're using Indico for AP invoice processing.
Great, thanks for that introduction, Chris. I want to walk through some of the features coming out of Indico 5, and while you haven't been able to use them yet, I think you'll be able to speak to like the value or the benefit that they could provide for Johnson Controls, or that they could provide in the market, seeing as you've been in the space for a little bit of time. So I'm going to start with staggered loop training. So we heard from Sasha that with staggered loop training, the business will actually be able to control their production models, right, and what they're learning. Can you talk to me a little bit about the value or the benefit that you see at Johnson Controls?
Sure. We're in the process of implementing the human in the loop and using the Indico Review product. And one of the things that we noticed, or what we really wanted to be able to do, was as that human is reviewing the product, they're really providing knowledge into the model, right? But because they're making changes to the documents, they're correcting documents, they're correcting the model. Having this staggered approach, and I'm excited to see it, having the staggered approach captures that knowledge and allows you then to incorporate that back into the model. Currently, we're doing this in kind of our roll your own fashion by curating our own sets that we add back into the model. I think this is going to add a lot of more formality and probably a lot more effective at bringing that knowledge back in and continuously improving the model.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, right? You can do it within the platform. You don't have to create something outside of it for sure. We also talked a little bit about document unbundling and classification, and really the benefit that we think it serves, like from a pre-processing perspective. From where you sit, can you talk a little bit about the value that could provide Johnson Controls?
Sure. Well, I'll stick with the AP invoicing example. So typically what we are supposed to get from our vendors is a single PDF that's a single invoice, right? And to a certain extent we get that, but as you can imagine, getting 100,000 invoices within a given year, actually much more than that. Point is that you get all the variations, right? You may get a document that's got multiple email or multiple invoices in it. You may have a document that's got one invoice and then the summary invoice of all the ones previously for the month. So having this essentially pre-processing done within the model takes it out of our hands. We've had to script, ways of getting around that or trying to decipher that afterwards. And having that within Indico itself takes one more piece out of the custom scripting, that we have to do.
Yeah, so it'll really enable you to ensure, one, that you have the right document type, right? But two, that it's going to the right workflow.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's really great. We also talked a little bit about link labels and the benefit that it could serve from an output perspective. So thinking about the unstructured data becoming even more structured as you look at the outputs. And, I think a lot of pain we've heard in the market or from customers is there's still a lot of work that has to be done from a post-processing perspective before they can really do something with that data. So maybe talk a little bit about the value you see in linked labels.
Sure. So this one's, if you can imagine, this one's pretty big when it comes to invoices, and we saw it in the example there from Sasha. Up until now, we've had to, you get a large JSON back of data coming out of a document with Indico, and what we've had to do is kind of piece an invoice line item together, right? Product number, description, quantity, price, subtotal. So you kind of have to, up until now, we've had to kind of put that together with our own logic and our own kind of post-processing. Having the ability to put a relationship together within Indico itself, and then being able to use that relationship later on when you're creating your own, custom data structure, so that you can actually take that data and action it in our ERPs or any of our downstream apps. That's going to take a lot of the logic out of our custom scripting hands and put a lot more rigor around it and probably a lot more structure around it as well, simplifying it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to allow you to even analyze that data in better ways, right? Giving you more insights.
Absolutely.
Great. Another feature that we talked about in this release show is universal document support. So really that's, increasing the quality of the images as well as being able to read handwriting and, an expansion of the languages that we can understand. Johnson Controls is a global organization. I can only imagine the benefit that this would provide, but maybe talk a little bit about the benefit that this has for a global organization as you think about being at the center and wanting to create that scale.
Sure. The scan quality we found up until now has been, we haven't had any issues with that. So it's good to see that, that's getting better as we move forward with the product. But the rest of the languages are going to be huge for us. Right now our AP invoicing is happening over in, I believe it's in Monterrey, Mexico, and the United States and the European. So we're dealing with all the major languages now, and that was kind of ring fenced because we didn't have language capabilities, for APAC languages. But that business has been knocking on the door for getting this AP invoice automation over there. And now being able to handle APAC languages, it opens the door to that. And you know, it's going to be huge from a scalability standpoint, because we have just as many invoices in APAC languages as we do in others, right? So that's going to be huge for us.
Yeah, that's really great. And I know right now Johnson Controls doesn't have any use cases in production with handwriting, but since you've been in this space for a while, maybe talk a little bit about what handwriting could unlock, you know, in the market.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is timesheets, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's amazing to think that there might be handwritten timesheets in 2022, but there are. Let's face it. A lot of times you will also have handwriting on, say, service orders or work orders. You know, a tech is at a particular location, and you know, in some cases you're not using electronic means, you're using, you know, a standardized form that they're writing parts and job descriptions into, right? So yeah, we're not using it right now within Johnson Controls. There are places where we have handwriting within Johnson Controls, but I can see for a lot of customers being able to decipher that, you know, that's been kind of, you know, it's been a huge challenge in order to work with handwritten documents until now. Yeah,
and it's so mind-blowing that we still have so many different, you know, operations that are handwriting things, you know, but it's the environment we're still in. Moving on, we talked a little bit about Workflow Canvas, and really what Indico 5 is going to do is really put the power in the user's hands, right, on the orchestration of their workflows. I know it's not super relevant for Johnson Controls right now, but maybe talk about the benefit or the value that you see that could unlock for Johnson Controls as well as in the market.
Yeah, so this actually does have some significant benefit for us, because if you can imagine, you know, you in every document you have multiple fields, you have multiple iterations of a field, you have you have a large amount of post-processing that you have to do with the document once you get it in your hands. You may have turned that document from, you know, an image into, you know, actionable data, but you've got to manipulate that actionable data, just like we said before with linked lists. You have to piece that together into how you can use it downstream. Being able to manipulate the workflow takes the custom scripting side to a certain extent out of our hands, and in a good way. Because now within the product and above your RPA downstream, you can take a lot of that and actually manipulate the data within Indico itself. So the value is in the simplicity. You're no longer maintaining your own, you know, code downstream in order to do this transformation. You can do it within the workflow itself.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like what's super beneficial is, you know, it's really in the hands of the business user, right, to orchestrate that workflow, but then also be able to triage. But I would think for COEs, like within Johnson Controls, they don't have to be so reliant on you all to really like pinpoint everything that's going on, you know, and troubleshoot. So I think like that could serve a huge benefit for those COEs that are really central within their organizations.
True. And again, it gets back to the simplification, right? And you can shift the building and the logic and the knowledge off of IT to a certain extent and further into the business, who has the best knowledge of what the documents are and their structure.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for those COEs, it allows them to stay lean, but like still create scale throughout the enterprise, right? And allow the business to continue to have benefits or velocity.
Absolutely.
So great. Thanks for your insights on those features. I'm going to ask you one last question before we turn it over to Q&A. I would like to know, you know, what feature are you most excited about and why?
Oh, easily the language. Hands down, the language. Because that's been the barrier so far for us of, you know, scaling our invoice processing to the rest of the enterprise. you know, this essentially opens the door to us being able to do invoicing in India, in Dalian, China, in Japan, all of these different places where we're going to be working with APAC languages. So by far, that's the biggest feature that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, I think, you know, any global organization that has operations all over the world really needs to have one platform that can handle all those languages. So we're really excited about that as well. Chris, thank you so much for the time. I'm going to invite Sasha back on with us and open it up for Q&A from the audience. Great. Thanks for coming back on, Sasha. We have a couple of questions here. I'm going to throw this first one to you, Sasha. You mentioned unstructured a few times. Can you define what we mean when we say unstructured?
Sure. So unstructured really is most of the content that you think about having. It's the PDFs, the images, the videos, anything where you cannot easily copy and paste it in. And even a lot of the copy and pasted in files that you have can be considered unstructured. So if there's not an easy way for you to map those documents to where you want them to live in your downstream system and the data within those documents, then they would be considered unstructured. I think that there's a lot of people who think even form things like invoices could be considered structured because they come frequently in the same style. But even then, they're extremely difficult to map. And so we would consider that semi-structured, or oftentimes at Indico, completely unstructured given the variability within them.
Yeah, great. So this next question is for you, Chris. You know, the audience would like to know, what is the current success rate, touchless rate for AP invoices with using Indico at Johnson Controls? And then there's a follow-up to that, but I'll let you answer that first.
Sure. So the touchless rate is actually less than we would expect, simply because we're working with the process itself is not completely standardized at this point. What we've done with our pilot, we're already into the accuracies in the 80%, high 80s, low 90s with our fields, and the flow through of the processing, it's been lower than we've expected, not because of the Indico model. It's because there are so many different off ramps that you can, in business exceptions that you can have by bringing, you know, an invoice in and doing three-way matching, right? Frankly, I would like to see it higher, but what we've done actually is IT. We've managed to expose a number of things within the business process that currently or previously weren't recognized, and which were leading to low capture rates and low success rates of touchless processing, right? Now, as we go forward and we're optimizing the business process as well, along with the business, you know, I would expect us to get probably into the 70s and 80s. But again, remember, that's a combination of the vendors, you know, adhering to standards, the business following the standard process, and IT being able to implement that through the model, right? So there's a large partnership there in order to get to a touchless system.
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting. Automation, you know, process automation over the last 3 years has really exposed, you know, business process, right? And like really like forced like mechanism to fix processes, which I think is also like a huge benefit of what it's done for a lot of organizations. There was a follow-up to this. They'd like to know how long you've been using Indico and how has success really increased since then?
Sure. We started, actually, I remember the date and time. We turned it on live August 10th at approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon last year. I know that because I was sitting with bated breath watching it happening. So the progress so far has been, we've done a number of iterations to the model, and you know, like in the example with the staggered loop here, we've done kind of our roll your own process of taking the next batch of invoices, training that, merging with the model, and so on and so forth. And we've progressively gotten, we've gone probably each time we've iterated up, we've probably gained well, I'm not going to do it relative. I would say we've probably gained between 15 and maybe 20% accuracy each time we went up. Now remember, each time that we train upwards, you get less and less value out of it. So there's a point of diminishing returns. I don't think we've reached that yet. We've done labeled 3,500 invoices to date, I believe. So, you know, it can only get better from there.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. I'm glad you remember the date and the time, holding your breath. But I'm glad it's gone well so far. Sasha, this one's for you. You've mentioned that we're using Microsoft's ML platform within the product. Can you help the audience understand what we're using it for, and how it's helping Indico Data?
Sure. So we are using Microsoft Read API. That is the service that we're utilizing for OCR purposes. So as we ingest the data, we're allowing it to go through Read API and getting that text data out so that we can provide that NLP automation that Indico can provide so well. So when it's going through, it is using a mixture of traditional OCR as well as computer vision in order to provide those better results on things like bad scans and handwriting, so that we can train models on that data.
Thanks, Sasha. Super insightful. This next question is for you, Chris, because you all have RPA. So, you know, a lot of folks are suggesting they have RPA vendors, and they're curious, is Indico considered complementary or competitive?
I would say in JCI, it's actually complementary. Now, if you can imagine, in a corporation our size, we have a huge number of applications and tools, some of which are already incumbents, some of which we're rationalizing into smaller groups. There are competitors out there to Indico. Everybody has got document processing and automation that's being built into their products. Oracle, SAP, UiPath, automation, you name it. There's somebody out there that's also doing the same thing. The reason why we went with Indico was there's the ability to adapt it to different things and different models. I don't want to call it a roll your own type of approach, but it's more flexible than some of the other tools that we've seen. You can adapt it to work with a document type that's a long form contract, or you can build a model that's an invoice. If I would expect it to be complementary. There's some places where we would use Indico over others, and other places where we might use something else if it's a niche, type of an edge case. But it really depends on how big your organization is and how many tools you've got in it.
Yeah, definitely. When I was sitting in your seat, it was complementary, right? Like there's so much need to unlock that unstructured data that sits in the middle of all of our processes that we all want to automate. So I'll ask this to both Sasha and Chris, because Sasha, would be good to hear from the product side at Indico, and Chris from the customer side. So we'll start with you, Sasha. What's like the key to identifying use cases that are a good fit for Indico?
That's a great question. I think oftentimes if there has been automation within your line of business or within your COE where maybe you haven't achieved the results that you wanted, either you didn't get to production or there was a set of data that didn't qualify in with the previous tool that you were using, I think Indico has a lot to offer in those cases. We operate specifically in unstructured data. That is really our sweet spot and what we try to fulfill across, the enterprise. So it's not limited to something like invoices or contracts. It really is for anything. And we try to be the tool that an enterprise can adopt to feed all those lines of business. So if you've ever experienced that struggle, we're for you. If you're starting your journey with automation and you have some unstructured data, it's really an opportunity where we'd love to hear from you and hear more about your use case. And I bet you that we have a solution for you.
And Chris, coming from the customer's perspective, how do you identify good use cases within Johnson Controls for Indico?
Well, it really comes down to gaps in technology and gaps in processes. You know, when the automation COE is RPA and automation, and IDP happens to be a small subset of that. But where Indico may have its greatest play is really around inputs into your processes, you know, like we saw with timesheets, or, well, I'll come back to my invoices. It's where you don't have a specific standard, or you're dealing with vendors and you're dealing with variability. And not only are you dealing with variability, but you're dealing with change over time. You know, especially with invoices, you know, an invoice from one of our vendors today may change tomorrow. But using an ML model like this allows you to kind of take that change in stride, because the concept is around a document, not around a specific vendor's format. So wherever you have inputs into your systems or inputs into your processes that are the same in concept but are different in format, right? That's really where Indico plays, and you know, where the gaps are between your systems and processes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll ask one more question for both of you, and then we'll conclude Indico 5 product release show. I think a lot of times when we talk about automation, you know, business expectations are always the automation will just handle everything. But I think we're at an inflection point where actually the workforce is best together, right? Like, we're best with automation or technology working with humans and really like augmenting their time and making, you know, their day-to-day like a little bit more valuable, and ensuring that the technology is doing the foundational work. So if you think about, you know, where we are in this, you know, blended workforce of digital and humans, like, where do you think Indico plays a role in that? I'll start with you, Sasha, and then move on to Chris, and then we'll conclude.
So one of the key tenets of Indico is that we're not a robot, we're a bionic arm. We really want to make the work that's happening faster and more accurate, ultimately at the end of the day. And we feel like working together, automation and humans, is going to produce the best result for that. There are insights that humans have that machines, you know, just simply cannot overcome at this point. And we want to make sure that we're able to supplement as best we can in those cases. Even getting to 70% of your data extracted by machine is going to offer extreme efficiencies. On top of that, we want to make sure that we're offering the best interfaces. As I mentioned in the demo, you know, we've done time studies where using our tools for things just like labeling, you're able to achieve a lot more efficiency, up to 50%. And then when you layer automation on top of that, you see 80 to 90% more efficiency out of your workforce. So if there is a backlog of data, a lake of data that you're looking to get processed, you can get through it sooner. And if you have a stream of data, you can always augment your workforce. There's always more to be done. And that's what we really want to offer to our customers, is that opportunity to see those efficiencies and, you know, help out the business as a whole, not just the automation realm.
Yeah, no, I love it. Chris, what about you? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so I like the bionic arm analogy there. That's really the case. You will, you know, we hear about automation and we hear about jobs being replaced, and we hear about, you know, all this stuff. Well, you know, I've been in the RPA space for about 5 years in Johnson Controls, and it probably goes out earlier than that if you widen the definition. But, you know, rarely does all humans get removed out of the process, right? There are things that the human mind does that does so much more efficiently, and frankly should be doing, rather than teaching a model to do. Things around, you know, customer relationship, things around edge cases of, well, maybe we want to downsell or upsell on a particular customer based upon that relationship or based upon their products. So you expect to have RPA work alongside your workforce to take over the easy, mundane, slam dunk type of decisions that you want to offload, right? You don't need to have somebody looking at that, but it complements your workforce because now your humans are sitting there and actually making the real decisions and the insightful decisions, and there's more value in that work than just simply looking at a piece of paper and saying, yeah, everything's fine, I'm going to type this in, right? So the digital workforce should complement your person workforce is the way we see it.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is it allows you to unlock more than you've ever had access to. And what we're seeing is a lot of organizations are using that data to create products, right, and start to differentiate themselves by getting access to this data. So it's really exciting. Sasha and Chris, thank you so much for joining today to introduce Indico 5. Thanks to all of our attendees, those that are current customers or folks that are just starting their journey. Thanks again.
Thank you.